Good morning. So, growing up in the United States, especially the South, I was always told that the U.S. is the best. That we're number one, better than every country in the planet, and everyone wishes they could be us. And it turns out that's true. We are outperforming every country on the planet in one single area. The U.S. arrests more of its citizens and has more citizens in state and federal prisons than any country on the planet. So we can pat ourselves on the back because we are number one in incarcerating our people. And that's what I'll be discussing with you today is the issue of mass incarceration in the United States and some steps we can take to correct this issue in our country and move forward. So my opinion is that the structure of the modern day criminal justice system in the United States has led to an ever expanding prison population. And it's full of inmates who are convicted of nonviolent or minor crimes, or poorer inmates who simply couldn't afford to make bail. So, from the website Business Insider, since 1993, many states have employed what's called three strikes approach, which basically means once you hit that third strike, you can be sentenced to 25 years to life, simply because it was your third strike, not because it was a violent or terrible crime. And from the Brennan Center for Justice, 65% of people in jail haven't actually been convicted of a crime. They couldn't afford to pay bail, so they're simply serving pre-trial detention. So essentially, they're being punished for being poor, which doesn't make sense in a country who claims it's the land of the free. So for me, I'm a 28-year-old veteran. I study psychology for my bachelor's, and I'm going to pursue a master's in criminal justice. So I spend a lot of my time researching our system and trying to familiarize myself with it to better prepare myself for my master's degree. And as well as that, I have a bit of a personal stake in this issue. When I was 19, I was arrested for a crime I didn't commit. Police didn't want to listen to me when I told my side of the story because I was intoxicated at the time. I spent a night in solitary confinement, chained to a chair, had to pay bail the next morning, and then had to pay over $3,000 in court fees because of a misunderstanding. So I feel like I've experienced some of the negative aspects of the system, and I would like to see some change. So what I'll discuss today is the aspects of our system that have led to our huge prison populations and what I believe could be some first steps we could take to fixing this problem. So the two issues I will discuss about mass incarceration will be what are called mandatory minimum sentences and the unmonitored discretions of prosecutors when determining the length of a sentence. So first is mandatory minimum sentencing. So from Business Insider again, since 1983, 49 states in the United States have employed these type of policies. In 86, Congress passed a bill that required 5 to 10-year sentence for drug importation and distribution. And then 2 years later, that bill was extended to basically anyone who was present during the transaction. So you could have gone over to your friend's house, just walked in the door, and they could have been in the middle of a drug and transaction. Police show up, you're serving 10 years simply because you went over to your friend's house that day. When these type of sentences are imposed on offenders, punishment doesn't always fit the crime. So from an article in The Atlantic, they discuss how a person could be arrested for a minor nonviolent crime, but due to these sentences, they'll serve 25 years. And after serving such a lengthy time in prison, it's essentially impossible for them to truly rehabilitate themselves to society, just given how our system works today. There's nothing in place to help them, really. And that's a problem. The next problem we'll discuss is prosecutorial discretion. So instead of judges, it's more common for prosecutors to make the final decision when determining the length of a sentence a person should serve. And this happens away from the judge, away from the jury, not even in a court. It's just the prosecutor and the defense attorney discussing it one-on-one. So this is from the Northwestern University Law Review, a research article. Because prosecutors utilize their personal discretion in determining these plea sentences, there are widespread inconsistencies in sentence length for the same crime. So you could rob a bank and serve 20 years. One person. That's what one prosecutor gave you. But another person could do the same exact thing but only serve 15 years, which also seems to be a huge issue because our system should be consistent. It should be a sentence for a crime. But that's not how it works today. So next I'll discuss some possible solutions for us to deal with this problem. Now these would be the first of many steps that would take years probably to see actual results, but if we don't start now, when will we start? So the idea for my first step here comes from the Brennan Center for Justice, and it would be to rethink who goes to prison in the first place. So in 2016, a study found that 300,000 inmates were in jail for low-level crimes, and they could be released without any danger to the public. So why are they still serving jail sentences? Because no one's really paying attention to them, and they had their third strike, so they're stuck there. So the next goal would be an idea I got from the New York Times, would be to reduce the overall sentences being carried out. So, for example, some states categorize breaking into an empty house or stealing someone's iPhone as a violent crime. Because of that, the perpetrator of that crime is given a lengthy sentence that doesn't really fit the crime. Like, punishment should fit the crime. The context of the situation needs to be taken into account. They can't just, oh, violent crime, 20 years. That doesn't make sense and it's not fair. So the final step here would be to strengthen alternatives to incarceration. So for these type of low-level minor offenses, maybe they don't need to go to jail. They could work, strengthen probation processes, parole processes, mental health programs, all these sort of alternatives to incarceration, which would give these people a different avenue which they could change their life and readjust themselves to be able to work in our society more appropriately. So next is prosecutors. So monitoring them more closely. And again, this comes from a research article from the University of Northwestern University Law Review. The primary issue with prosecutors is that while engaged in plea bargaining with the counsel for defense, there's no oversight for the decision of the prosecutor. They make their own decision, and then they just take it to the judge, and the judge normally just agrees with them. So a solution to this would be to employ a neutral third party that could work with both the defense and the prosecution, discuss what they want to do from a non-biased viewpoint, and advise them both on what the sentence should be. After that, you could just look at the prosecutors themselves. They generally only serve their term as the prosecutor. So this idea would be to have them work as a defense counsel for 6 months, maybe a year of their term, just so they can see themselves from their enemy's point of view and they can truly understand the impact they can have on a person's life. Now, in conclusion, there's no easy road out of this. Okay, this issue is widespread, and during this speech, I've only discussed a small portion of the issues with this problem. We've discussed the damage mandatory minimum sentencing causes and the issue with discretion of prosecutors, and we've looked at a few avenues we could travel to change these systems. So I'll just leave you with a simple question about this issue. So how can the United States continue to claim to be this bastion of freedom and equality when so many of our own citizens are locked away from the world and deprived of the rights our Constitution affords them? Thank you.